Alright, so today I'm going to showcase a deck that I put together, and what it is it's based around the Deathwish mechanic. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Deathwish mechanic, you've got your Earth Elementals and you've got your Soleno Harpies, and those two cards both have Deathwish attached to them. Now the Soleno Harpy does not itself have Deathwish, but the eggs that it spawns do use that Deathwish mechanic. So what the deck revolves around is in early round 1 or even around 2, you're going to throw out as many of these units as possible. So if you're stacking Earth Elementals, you want to have them all together, or same goes with the Soleno Harpy. You want to have, well, honestly, with the Soleno Harpy, you want to tier it. So you put one in one row, one in the other, and one in the other, because what the Harpies do is the minute that you spawn them in between an egg, or if you spawn it, put it right in between two eggs, then it's going to spawn two other Harpies. It's not going to destroy the eggs, but it's going to trigger the Deathwish mechanic and spawn two Harpies. Now your hope is having each of your Soleno Harpies in different rows is to get them to trigger once again another Deathwish from the Soleno Harpies that come out onto the board. So that's why you want to have these guys in separate rows from each other. With the Earth Elemental, I mean, it's pretty much you have to throw it in the melee row anyways, but when you put a Harpy in between them, then you're going to trigger both of their Deathwishes at the same time, and you're going to get 4 of the smaller Earth Elementals, which are the lesser, is what they're called, and they're 2 strength, so you're going to get 8 out of that. So that's the strategy, and then what you want to do is, that's your push in every round, and it's not going to always be a huge push, but it's going to be enough to keep your opponent playing cards. And then you have the carryover. If your opponent doesn't destroy them, you have the carryover with their Deathwish mechanic, which will put those cards back onto the field, and then your opponent is going to have to choose whether they want to play that round out or whether they want to just forfeit the round in hopes that they will gain card advantage or keep card advantage. Most of the time, though, this deck is going to keep you with card advantage, which is the thing that's awesome about it. So then we also, so we have our 3 Harpies, we have our 3 Soleno Harpies, and we have 2 Wild Hunt Hounds. And I really like these cards because we're going to be going with that frost, the whole frost aspect of the Wild Hunt regime. So that's why we have our 2 Wild Hunt Hounds, and then of course our 3 Earth Elementals, and then 2 Arch Griffins just to clear a row, because a lot of the time you're going to have your rows stacked pretty good with units, so you want to have 2 of these guys, and then, you know, your Water Hag is going to fill in the void for any clear skies on rows that you need to get rid of after you might run out of Arch Griffins. So you have your 2 Arch Griffins, and then move on to the silver cards now. Well, of course you run your 2 Biting Frosts. Those are just going to be attached to your Wild Hunt Hounds. You really don't want to ever play these cards, because you'll usually always have 1 Wild Hunt Hound in hand on round 1, and if you don't have both, then you can just use Eredin to spawn another one, and that's really the only form of efficient deck thinning, which is not much. It's 2 cards, but those 2 cards are once again going to be pretty vital to this whole aspect of the deck. Getting them out early on is better, because then you have, and then we'll move on to the silvers. So we have Nithral, of course, just that 2 strength, and he's not really getting countered much lately. I don't know. There's not been a lot of locks going around in the matches I've been playing with this deck, but he can easily be countered. That's why I like to save him for a round 3, just take the opponent out approach. But he's an awesome card as long as he doesn't get locked. And then we have Jotun. We have him purely just to deal a little bit extra damage to the opponent, pull them to a row we might want them in. He's like our poor man's Caranthir. So we're going to use him to pull units to a row that we want, because every once in a while we'll want to use him to pull them into a row. We can make a huge row with him every once in a while, and then we can just throw old Spear Tip down and give them an extra blast of 2 damage to the 5 units. It could be more, but he's going to hit 5, so that's where Spear Tip goes in to the equation. But then also for, let's finish up on the silver side. So for silvers, we've got Water Hags, pretty self-explanatory. A lot of this deck is moving opponents to a row you want them in with your silver and your gold. So when you pull them into the same row, that's going to help her out tremendously because she has Lacerate. So you can use that offensively. She's got the Clear Skies and Torrential Rain. I usually use the Torrential Rain more often than not, just to get an opponent to waste their Clear Skies, so then I can Caranthir and finish off what I need to do. And then we're also running White Frost and Aeromancy. So White Frost fills the board with 2 frosts on whatever 2 rows you'd like it to go to, and then Aeromancy just to replay that later on. And then this is the one silver card that I'm not really too sure if I like it in the deck. It's been doing pretty good. The one thing that really kind of bothers me with it is I really wish that it had an armor immune to it, because the 5 damage does hit armor, unfortunately. So just to go with the whole theme of the row stacking, that's why I have this in here. And honestly, now that I think of it, I might throw in Marigold's Hailstorm instead, because that could potentially do even more damage, and it has this, you know what, I'm going to replace that right now. So this is untested, but if you want to roll with that too, that's fine. I'm going to give that a shot in my future matches. But yeah, so Marigold's Hailstorm, and then for our golds, we have Gales. Gales is just pretty much standard in any monster deck. He's so useful. He's basically a 2-point Royal Decree for monsters, which is awesome. You get 2 gold points, plus a lot of the time you get to pull the gold that you want. Every once in a while you don't, and that's why Royal Decree might be more beneficial. And I've even thought of throwing him and Royal Decree into this deck. That way I can utilize the Spear Tip Caranthir combo more often. And so if I were to do that, then I would of course replace Imlerith, but he seems, I'm having a hard time getting rid of him, because 90% of the time you have Frost on a row with this deck, and his 16-point possibility of him being a 16-point card is just hard to pass up, honestly. And just that 8 gold strength on the board, plus the 8 damage that he does to somebody on a Frost row, is super, super good. Even without Frost, he's still a 12-point card, so he's up there. I like him a lot. And then Spear Tip. For those of you that don't know how Spear Tip works, because he hasn't been utilized much recently, when there's 3 units or more in a row, then he wakes up the next round after you activating him. When he does that, then he deals 5 damage, he deals 2 damage to up to 5 enemies in the row. So that's why I'm thinking of adding Royal Decree in just for the sake of it's when you get it to work, it is super awesome when you Karen Thier 5 enemies into a row and then you spear tip right after that. Man, it does so much damage. It's super good. It's one of the most what is the word I'm looking for? It's one of the more fun mechanics to mess around with in the game. This combo is super fun. And he hasn't been getting a lot of playtime, so I figured I'd base a deck around him and just see how it went. But so anyways, this is my Wild Hunt deck. It definitely could use a little bit of tweaking here and there, but so far it's been running pretty well. If I were to make any suggestions of things you could pull out, you could pull out one Harpy, you might even pull out an Earth Elemental or a Soleno Harpy possibly. And what I would do, just going along the theme of row stacking, is maybe just replace those with Drowners. And I might try that out later on and give an updated deck review after I do mess around with things like that. But for the time being, this deck has been doing pretty good in casual, and I wouldn't suggest testing it out in ranked until you get a feel for it, but that's my next step with it. It feels fairly powerful. So anyways, that's the deck. It's really fun to play. Like I said, it's if you have Spear Tip and you haven't found a use for them and you're a monster player, you most likely have all the rest of these cards. So yeah, give it a shot. Let me know how it goes.
You shall die, worm.
Naivety is a fool's blessing.
Wache! A filed one.
Ledwed warlego siał mogar.
A word once given will never break.
Calm and elm. Dana.
The North shall tuck tail and beg for mercy.
Ested esa crisa.
What do you need me to do?
I shall be your eyes, my lord.
Good grief! You're worse than children!
There is no escape.
Erigor! Your humble servant.
Barbarians.
Boo!
I shall do as you command.
I live to serve.
Naivety is a fool's blessing.
There is but one punishment for traitors.
You talked enough.
Utter your wish, and I shall make it so. I live to serve.
A shame I have no time.
Now, how did that incantation go? Say it in actively!
Any lost words? Blood of the hand!
Glad and Kazer!
La Dana!
You've talked enough.
Humans have no place in Broccolon.
Any lost words?
leave here alive.
Dwarf.
You're dead already.
We elves have our paths. Don't worry about me.
The only good human is a dead human. I am who I need to be.
You shall die, worm.
There will be no negotiation.
This is elven land, Dwan, upon which your kind dies.
Dance of death! Ha! Ha!
Ledwed varledo sial nogar.
Fire to one. La